The concept of justice has changed over time, from the ideas of ancient philosophers to today's various understandings of the term. For instance, you may think that a just society is one in which each person is free to live without too much interference from others, or to speak their mind about the issues. Or when you think of a system of justice, you might picture a courtroom where a jury determines what punishment is appropriate for a criminal proven to be guilty. This may be your version of justice being served. Today, when we hear the term social justice, we may think of equal opportunities in society. For instance, you may view efforts to fight racism and sexism as movement toward greater social justice in our communities. This lesson looks at how two ancient philosophers, Plato and Aristotle, thought about justice over 2,000 years ago in ways that differ from our views today. We'll compare the two and consider how they were similar and in what cases they were different from one another too. In his text, The Republic, Plato explores how to create a more just society. For Plato, justice is a condition of the soul, of virtue. To him, justice wasn't necessarily a framework that we use to create laws that are fair. For Plato, justice was something that came largely from the inside of a person. If you were a just person, you could help create a just society. What would motivate a person to live justly as he describes? Plato considered the virtue of justice to be a key part of living the good life. If you imagine Plato coming up with a list of the essentials for living large, justice would definitely be one of his responses. In his ideal society, philosopher kings would rule, preventing an emotional populace from having too much control. Here you might think, what is Plato thinking suggesting kings when that sounds like the opposite of justice to many of us today? Well, Plato thought that a monarch acting in the best interests of everyone was much better than citizens who are acting on their own private whims. He was concerned, too, about division within societies, and so part of his hope was that private property and family would be held in common. Instead of my family and my things, a society would be one big family without the need to own our own things. Once again, you might wonder what Plato was thinking with this suggestion. No family units? How is that just? To understand his thinking, we have to remember that he didn't view justice in the same way that you and I do. He saw justice as promoting harmony and structure in the individual, and had ideas for how an ideal society would work. He did not necessarily believe that individuals need the kinds of freedoms we think of when we imagine a just life in our societies today. Even among classes of people, like craftsmen, warriors, and rulers, he proposed that there are appropriate divisions and responsibilities for each to keep the society harmonious and just. Doesn't sound particularly equal, right? Though not necessarily progressive to our modern ears, the Republic is still considered by many to be an important exploration into Plato's beliefs about the ideal society. Portions of Aristotle's Politics also strike us as less than just. For instance, he promoted the existing view that men were more natural leaders than women. He also found a way to justify the slavery of his time. These are both topics we would find in opposition to our current understanding of justice and equal rights. He didn't view a philosopher king as the ideal solution like Plato did. Instead, he outlined various true forms of government. According to Aristotle, the true forms of government are those in which the one, or the few, or the many govern with a view to the common interest. He was opposed to governments that rule based on private interest or the accumulation of wealth. He believed that the true forms of government could deteriorate into less just forms of government if rulers didn't govern with the common interest in mind. He disagreed with Plato about issues such as eliminating the family unit and private property. Still, he did not believe that justice is about everyone getting what they want. Instead, he wanted a society where everyone gets what they deserve. He believed that virtuous behavior deserves reward and wrongdoing deserves punishment. That may sound more familiar since our current system of court justice uses this approach to punishment. Both philosophers agreed that justice is what human beings should want to achieve, and that justice is a major part of living the good life. Today, we consider their ideal societies to be missing key elements such as equal opportunity and fair treatment when compared with modern views of social justice. For Plato, justice is a condition of the soul, of virtue. Justice serves the purpose of promoting harmony and structure in the individual, and by extension, the community. Plato's ideal society was one in which private property and the family unit would be instead held in common by the state, which would ideally be ruled by philosopher kings who would be knowledgeable about how to promote justice. Aristotle disagreed with eliminating private property in the family unit. However, he agreed with Plato that justice is an essential part of living well. According to Aristotle, the true forms of government are those in which the one or the few or the many govern with a view to the common interest. He believed justice was primarily about people getting what they deserve.